Autism and sex, the part that nobody explains. That's what we're talking about in this video. And if you've been keeping up with my channel, you'll know that we made a very similar video where we talked about ADHD and sex. This video is going to be very similar, but we're going to talk about it from the perspective of autism. So if you haven't checked out the ADHD video, go back to my page and catch that one. This video, we're talking about autism. All right, y'all, so I want to go straight into it. So for our very first talking point, we're going to be talking about sexual desire. So for many autistic people, sex is more about sensory needs, more so than it being a sexual thing. I know that doesn't make sense to a lot of y'all. It doesn't make sense, but hear me out. I'll repeat. For many autistic people, not every autistic person, but for many, sex is more so about the sensory side of things than the sexual side of things. So let me explain. For a lot of people, I don't know if I want to say the majority, but for a lot of people, sex is about fantasy or about desire. How much you want somebody, how much you want a certain situation. All these things play a factor into you wanting sex. However, for some autistic people, sex can be more so about the sensory side of things. It can be a way to seek some regulation. Some autistic individuals may prefer to get their sensory needs met through things like repetition, closeness, touch. This could be a way to regulate yourself. And obviously, sex is one way that we can get all of those things. That doesn't mean that they necessarily had a big desire. Now, they could also have desire at the same time. I don't want to make it seem like you have to have desire or some sensory stimulation that you're seeking. But you could have this need for closeness, for touch, for repetition. And I have a joke at the comedy club where I say that there were a lot of moments in my past where I wasn't necessarily horny, but I just needed a hug. That sort of thing is what I'm talking about here. That desire for closeness. Interestingly enough, touch can sometimes feel like it's too much. Maybe you're being hugged too tightly or it's painful. And sometimes you can feel this in addition to loud noises, the way clothes feel on your body. Sometimes this can be all too much for you and it can just shut down your desire altogether. So the sensory side of things is very interesting because sometimes you can use sex as a way to meet your sensory needs. At the same time, sometimes you won't be in the mood to have sex because of sensory issues that are in your environment. Like I said, if the lights are just way too bright or if the clothes on your skin are just rubbing up against your skin in a way that is just pissed you off, and then you smell something in the kitchen that just turned you off, that can eliminate your desire altogether. I wish more people pay attention to the sensory side of sex and didn't just look at it from the perspective of desire. Because yes, desire is important, and that's probably the number one thing that drives us to have sex. Desire. I want this person. I want this situation. I want this thing that I have in my mind. But we don't talk enough about the sensory side of things. We don't talk nearly enough about it because depending on what your environment is like, that could dictate your desire. And this is something that I think everybody who's dating an autistic person needs to understand. That if your partner had a lot of desire one day and the next day it seemed like nothing changed except for a couple of environmental things, but the desire just went away, it's probably not you, but it's more so something that's environmental. For my second talking point, the drive to want to have sex for an autistic person can be conditional. We spoke a bit about sensory issues, but having other things in place like predictability, sameness, routine, emotional safety, these are things that oftentimes have to be in place in order for the desire to be there. And this is why you can be in a relationship with somebody and things are going great and there's a lot of desire. Every other moment you want to jump on top of them, they want to jump on top of you. It's a lot of mickey ficky. Everybody's happy. And then you hit a rough patch in the relationship where maybe one person or maybe both people are questioning their place in the relationship and you don't feel as safe. When that emotional safety is stripped away for the autistic person, this can impact desire. So last week, there was a lot of desire and the person wanted to be intimate. They wanted to have sex. Everything was great. But this week, after a couple of fights and arguments and, there's questions in the air about whether a breakup is imminent, all of a sudden, the desire is gone. It's funny how that works. All of a sudden, the desire is gone and maybe nothing changed in the environment. Maybe your partner did their best to make sure that the candles are there, everything smells good. We're fine. Nothing has changed. The only thing that has changed is that we had a really big argument. We had a bad argument. And we questioned whether we were going to make it as a couple. And not because the emotional safety is something that you have to question, guess what? The desire has been impacted. So I think that a lot of people, especially if you're dating someone who's autistic, you have to keep in mind that emotional safety sometimes is a prerequisite for the desire being there. It'll blow your mind when you put two and two together. But if you can understand this, then it'll give you more reason to be mindful of this. For my third talking point, I want to talk about masking and how this can happen during sex. So people don't know this, but masking can happen during sex. And this can look like forcing eye contact when it's not natural to you, or maybe you don't want to, or following a certain script, or being okay with discomfort when you really aren't okay with a certain thing. But because you think that it's expected of you, you'll tolerate it, or you make it seem like this is okay for you. You don't want your partner to know that you're having a bit of a difficult time. So even though something is not the most comfortable for you, you're just going to act as if it's all good and you're just going to go along with everything. When sex becomes a performance instead of a bid for connection, burnout follows. Burnout follows. And this leads to a disconnection. You're not connecting anymore. You're not connecting because you feel like things need to be a certain way. Everything has become scripted. You're not able to be yourself during one of the most intimate things that you can do with somebody else. What more intimate thing can you do with somebody than they make you fakey? Y'all are coming together to make magic in a sense, right? But all of a sudden, the connection is not there because everything now feels like a rehearsal. The same way that you often feel this need to develop a script before you go out in public so you can have things to say when people ask you questions. All of a sudden, you feel like sex has become something that you have to prepare for, and it takes so much mental work before. This is not sustainable. And this is not something that's enjoyable, quite frankly. If this becomes an all too familiar theme in your relationship, what you'll probably see is sexual avoidance. You'll see a partner who had a high desire all of a sudden check out or just have less of an interest. You can have a loss of libido, and sometimes it can lead to an emotional shutdown in a relationship where one side just is not able to bring out that side of them, whereas before in the past they were able to connect. But now it's like we're just not connecting. We're just not connecting. Something is off. And as it is with most things in life, the way to get through this is by being upfront with your partner, letting them know that things have been a little awkward the past couple of times and that you're just not feeling it. But it's not them and it's not you, but it's more so of your desire to want to please them and you feeling this need, this urge to follow some type of a script. You just feel as if you have to do certain things for their approval, or vice versa. This could be the case, it may not be the case, but whatever is making you feel as if sex has become a rehearsal or has become something that's scripted, when you can get to the bottom of that, that is more than likely what will transform your relationship and allow you to connect once again. And the unfortunate thing about disconnection when we're talking about sex or lack of sex is that that's normally the first sign that a couple is going to start to kind of disconnect and go their separate ways. Not a breakup, but when the sex stops, there is a loss of connection in couples, and it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. You want to do your best to be as intimate, whether that includes sex or not, but when you're not connecting, you can fall into negative patterns and you can also fall away from each other. And for my fourth and final talking point, I want to talk about the need for structure that many autistic individuals have and how this can look as if you're being controlling when it comes to sex. So the autistic brain tends to thrive on routine, sameness, predictability, its nervous system regulation. If this is how you are when it comes to sex, you could be somebody who wants things to be in a certain way. This is how we have sex every night. We go to the kitchen, we eat, and we come back here and we do this, and we put on this music and then we do that. It will follow a certain type of pattern. And that could be the autistic individual's way of controlling the situation to make sure that they are safe. However, for the other person, it can look as if this person wants to control things when it comes to sex. And if this is what the other person thinks, then it's natural for this person to sometimes get upset and say, every time we're about to get intimate, I just feel as if you have to have it your way. And when I want to switch up one thing, it becomes a big thing for you. You never initiate. Everything is just vanilla. And as you can see, this can lead to a lot of arguments in the relationship. I think what will save the couple here is both parties, not just one side, but both parties understanding that the autistic individual's desire for structure is coming from a place of needing regulation. It's what they need for their nervous system. It's not their desire to control the narrative around sex. Those two things can be conflated very easily, and it's very important to delineate. We got to have a clear line of demarcation between the two, because if we don't, it can easily fall into one side is using sex as a way to control the narrative in the relationship and to manipulate the other person, because using sex or financial resources is a classic way for either side, either gender, to control things, to control the dynamics in a relationship. So if you don't understand, and look, maybe your partner could have undiagnosed autism, who knows? But if you don't understand that this is what's going on, and you think that your partner is using sex as a way to control you within the relationship, sometimes this can lead to the relationship ending very quickly, abruptly. And after the fact, then you realize, oh, this person was on the spectrum. This is what was going on. I didn't know. I thought that they were trying to manipulate me. I thought they were gaslighting me. I thought that they were covert narcissists. I didn't know what was going on, which is part of the reason why I say if you can pursue a professional diagnosis, or at least learn more about autism or learn about conditions that you could have, it could save relationships. Knowing about the things that you have and how these conditions affect you, not only will it save your relationship, but it could also save many relationships in your life, maybe with your parents, with your siblings. It's just important to know where you stand and what you're up against, because I don't want to make it seem like, having autism is a death sentence or you can't live the life that you want. You just have to know the brain that you have and learn to work with it, not against it. All right, guys, so those are a couple of talking points about autism and sex. I wanted to get to the nitty gritty. I wanted to get to things that I think people are really struggling with. I don't like surface level conversations. I'm a fellow neurodivergent, so I want to get into the deep topics that people want to talk about. That's what I'm here for. What else am I here for? I'm not here to just kick it. I want to kick it too, but I want to talk about the things that people really want answers to. So I feel like these 4 talking points can be very helpful. And use the comment section to let me know what your thoughts are. I'll go through and I'll read the comments, and I'll pick out what my next couple of videos are going to be about. And, we'll keep the conversation going. Obviously, I have a Patreon as well, and that's probably the quickest way to get your questions answered. I have a lot of people who send DMs, and I get so many DMs, I can't see all of them. But the Patreon is probably the best way to get your questions answered, and they'll be answered in video form. So I just wanted to say that. I just wanted to put that plug in for the Patreon. So I appreciate y'all. I love every single person who watches me on whatever platform. Maybe you're a short form person and you watch me just on TikTok or Facebook Reels or Instagram, or maybe you're somebody who likes to watch, or YouTube Shorts, right? Or you could be somebody who enjoys these longer form videos. Either way, I'm just happy that you're here. And like I said, I appreciate you and I love y'all, and I'll see y'all on the next video. Peace.